Welcome to episode 127. We're Finn and Emma, and today we wanted to open the show a little bit differently than we normally do. We wanted to voice our love and support for everyone out there who is suffering from and affected by the systemic racism, hate, and violence.
Yeah, we are admittedly two of the whitest people on the planet.
That's true.
It's very true. And racial discrimination is not something that we have ever had to deal with. And at the same time, we do have a platform and we have a voice, and being silent is being complicit. And that's not who we are.
Nope.
This isn't a Democrat versus Republican issue. This is everybody against racism issue. And that is something that we are very, very, that we believe really strongly in. And that Black lives do matter.
They do. And over the last few months, it may seem like we don't have a lot of control over everything that happens in our life these days.
Any of us.
Right.
Not just us two.
But one thing we do have control over is how we react to situations and our own actions. So we wanted to spread the message of finding your own voice and standing up for what's right, being kind, and supporting and loving each other, regardless of race,
or anything else that makes us different. Like, that's the thing that makes us all human, and we should be embracing those things and using them to our advantage.
We should be doing better than what we are right now.
Yeah. And so, again, thank you for listening to this. We just wanted to tell everybody out there to be kind, take care of each other, and you can make a difference, even if it's just in your small bubble.
Yes.
And with that, we are going to cut over to a humorous soundbite of Chad talking about his early dates with Perla and her mom, and we will take it as normal from there. Thank you again for listening. We'll see you on the other side.
And so dating was interesting because they have a lot of rules around dating. And so one of which is that you always have to have a chaperone with you. So on all of our dates, her mom would come with us and watch us to make sure that we didn't hold hands.
Welcome to Normalizing Non-Monogamy, the podcast where we interview incredible people from across the entire spectrum of non-monogamy to hear their fascinating stories. We strive to bring guests on the show who have a healthy approach to non-monogamy. However, it's important to remember that everyone does it a little bit differently, and the views and opinions expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect our own.
Additionally, we produce this show for entertainment purposes only. Please be aware that we aren't doctors or therapists. Consult a medical professional for anything regarding your health that you might learn about on the show. Enjoy! This week, we have an interview today,
with Perla and Chad.
Yeah.
And as you might listen to this, you will realize that Chad talks a lot. But don't worry, he was not talking over Perla. He actually gave her quite a lot of opportunities to jump in, but she was shy on this episode.
Which is funny because at the end she talks about how outgoing she is and how much of an extrovert she is. But I think she was very, very nervous. And so what did get edited out was a lot of opportunities where Chad was saying, do you want to take this question? Do you want this one? And she kept deferring. So I think she was starstruck by me personally, but I didn't want to say it.
Not by me.
But anyway,
just glossed right over that.
As you probably caught at the little soundbite at the beginning, they grew up in some very extreme religious backgrounds, and they have come through a lot together. And this is a powerful episode, and it really doesn't just focus on religion at all. It's a lot of the communication and the shame and the jealousy that they've worked through. And that they honestly break it down really, really well, how they've worked through that. So this is a valuable interview.
Yes, we're really excited to get it out there. But we have a few quick announcements.
Super exciting announcements.
We had our first virtual meet and greet last Thursday, and it went really well. We had over 25 people sign on, and it was great meeting everyone, and we had nothing but great feedback from it. So our next virtual meet and greet is...
We're doing it again. Actually, people wanted us to do it every week. And we said, pump the brakes, folks. We're going to do it every month.
To start with, for sure. Doing the show every week is a lot of work anyway. But we have our next virtual meet and greet on June 25th. It's a Thursday night from 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, all of the information, if you want to join or sign up, can be found at normalizingnonmonogamy.com. Go there, click on either the meet and greet tab or the community tab at the top. Either way will get you there. You can sign up and learn more about it. We are looking forward to seeing you.
And next up, we have our next Patreon video live Q&A on June 17th at 9 p.m. Eastern and 9 p.m. Pacific. You can join either or both of the calls. And we also have a women's group call coming up for $5 and up patrons on June 16th. So for more information, go to our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com, and click on the Patreon button. Actually go to the community tab.
Somebody doesn't know her way around our new website very well.
I just am so used to saying go to the Patreon button, which you can. There's still a Patreon button different places in the blog posts.
Yeah. Anyway, don't listen to Emma.
Listen to me.
She's still learning the new website.
Jesus.
Go check it out.
I helped build it.
Anyway, one final announcement that we are also super excited about. We're really excited this week. Yes. You nodded, but they couldn't see that.
I realized that. Yes, we are.
So we're super excited. So we have a new sponsor for the show, and we're actually really excited about this because we have talked about other dating sites in the past, but this one is moving in a direction of progressive, inclusive, and diversity, and we are super excited about that. So
what is it, Finn?
I know. They're on the edge of their seats. Alt Playground. So they are a dating website for non-monogamous people, not just swingers, not just polyamorous people, but everybody in the open community.
Yeah, they've been around for about 20 years, but mostly focused on the East Coast, and they are rolling out and trying to go national. So
we're jumping on board.
Right. And we're also jumping on board because we're interested in having a long-term partnership with them.
Yeah. For us, it's important we're not just here to sell the next thing that somebody offers us to sell. But again, for us, it's a long-term partnership. And honestly, the diversity and inclusion was huge for us. I mean, that's the cornerstone of our show. And we just can't get enough of it. So we're really excited to be working with them to help build this new community.
Yeah.
Well, it's
awesome.
not new, but helping build it heading westward. Westward. All right. We have talked enough. Let's go talk to Chad and Perla. We hope you enjoy it, and we will see you on the other side.
Bye, everyone. Nope. Not bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Emma won't be here on the other side.
I was thinking that the other thing we forgot to mention is that our website's brand new. And so if you haven't seen it lately, go check it out. There's a brand new logo and a whole new website.
Yeah. And when we're done with this, Emma's going to go study it so she can send you to the right tabs.
Shut up. Oh my God. You are an asshole. Okay. Let's go talk to Chad and Perla. Well, welcome, Chad and Perla. We actually met you too.
That's Perla and Chad.
Wow. Okay.
Not to correct you early on. I'm just throwing it out there.
You want me to start over?
No. This is on the record.
This is on the record. Perla and Chad. We met you at one of our East Coast meet and greets last fall, which was amazing. And we're super excited to have you come on the show. So thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us. Yeah. Glad to be here.
Yeah.
Same here.
Could we start off by having you both introduce yourselves a little bit? Maybe if you want to share approximate ages, with location if you're comfortable sharing, and how long you've been together, maybe?
Yeah, so I'm Chad, 28. I live in South Philly.
I am Perla, 29. I live in Northeast Philly.
We've been together. We started dating in winter of 2013.
Okay.
So been together quite a while.
A little bit, yeah.
And are you guys still dating? Are you married? I guess maybe what does the high level dynamic look like? And then we'll dissect it piece by piece, organ by organ. Oh, that's graphic.
Yeah, that's a good question that doesn't have an easy answer. So we did get married. We were monogamous for a few years. And then since then, our dynamic has changed a lot. And we're still married, but we don't really as much act like we're married. Much more of like still dating as well as dating other people.
Right. Because if people were listening, they'll notice you don't actually live together right now.
Yes.
So that's something that I'm assuming maybe you did at one point and just found that this might be better for you, which we can dig into this more later.
Yes, that is the case. We did live together, and this is very recent, like 2 months ago.
Oh, okay.
Not living together.
Okay. Well, and so I guess we kind of now know sort of what it looks like. You're married, but more like you're dating and you're dating other people and you've started to really explore, I guess. Are you willing to take us back in time? You said you were monogamous for quite a while, and maybe how you got on this path and what that looked like early on for you two?
Sure. So we grew up very religious, both of us. We were both raised in a very religious cult, a very fundamentalist Baptist cult, and that was most of our lives growing up. Perla is from Chicago originally. Her family are from Chicago, and there's a big church in this cult out there as well as a college. I was from Philly originally, and my pastor told me, yeah, you should, go to this college and be a pastor. And so I thought that was what I was going to do. So I went to this seminary basically. And while I was there, eventually met Perla, and we got along really well. And we eventually got married because, in this very strict cult, there's you can't do a whole lot.
Right.
Let's put it that way.
The expectation that marriage needs to come pretty soon and to go much further. Yeah.
And so dating was interesting because they have a lot of rules around dating. And so one of which is that you always have to have a chaperone with you. So on all of our dates, her mom would come with us and watch us to make sure that we didn't hold hands, because that would have been the worst thing ever.
Yeah. That is one of the cardinal sins.
Yeah. So I'm being nosy for a second. Would you go out to dinner with each other and your mom would just sit at the table with you? Yeah. So it'd be like the three of you?
Sometimes she would sit like a table away or something like that, but always like pretty close and always well within eyesight.
So did you have to buy her dinner as well, Chad? Or what was the financial burden like on that one? Just curious.
I know, we're like...
It was a little expensive. I'll definitely say that.
Yeah. Well, at least now when you go on a date with two women, there's at least a reason to pay for both.
Oh my God.
Okay. So you grew up super religious, and obviously you got married pretty early, it sounds like. And then I guess...
And I'm assuming like during this whole time, the dating and getting married and stuff, it all felt pretty like comfortable to both of you, right? Because that's what you grew up with, and that's what you're supposed to do. So neither one of you were questioning that this wasn't the right path.
No, we weren't really questioning any of that really at the time.
Well, I grew up in church since I was 8. And that's what I was supposed to do. Go to this college, find the guy for me, be a virgin until I got married. Yeah, all that stuff. And so I was a very good girl. I followed rules all the time. Mm-hmm. Not until I met Chad.
It sounds like you followed the rules with Chad for a little while, like with your mom coming on dates. Yeah.
Yeah. I started doubting a lot of start being suffocated with all the rules, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was saying then with dating, at the time, Perla was still in college and she was also working like 3 jobs, and I wasn't in college at the time, but I was still working, and like, for the most part, our schedules didn't line up like hardly at all. And so the idea of trying to find a time when both of us were available and her mom was available was not easy. So sometimes we would try to have dates where her mom wasn't there. And so those had to be much more secretive.
Yeah.
And we had to be so thankful that my mom was a chaperone to us, because that she was available to us.
Yeah.
So we'll have our dates. That's how.
And at this point, Perla, did you live with them?
I did live with my mom at that point. Okay. My dad had left my mom and I was supporting her.
Okay.
That's why I was doing the 3 jobs. And I had my little sister at 16. Yeah. So yes, I was living with them.
Yeah. So I guess it makes it's hard to sneak out, right? and to go for a date.
Oh yeah. Especially in the family I was. Like I had to tell them where I was going, how long I was going. My mom was she worries a lot. And especially she put so much burden into a daughter in the Mexican culture. She was very traditional that the daughter stays at their parents' house until she gets married.
Right. So a lot of obstacles for you two to be able to have, I would say, somewhat of a semblance of a normal relationship early on.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, and I guess then you got married, and I'm assuming at that point you moved out and you two were doing, again, the traditional, we're married, doing that route. And then I guess, how did this conversation of non-monogamy start to poke up?
So we moved back to Philly shortly after we got married, and we started changing a few of our beliefs. They started to evolve a little bit. Not very much and not right away, but it's more like went from crazy extreme fundamentalists to like less extreme fundamentalists.
Yeah.
And, one of the things that we did is we started just talking a little bit more about sex and what we enjoyed and things like that. And it started out very slowly. And then eventually we just started to just admit when like we found someone else attractive, which the way we were raised, obviously you can't talk about anything like that. And if you find someone else attractive, that's like a horrible thing. You're a terrible person, all like that. But we just started like just being honest, like, yeah, you know what? This person is really hot. And we would just talk about that. And eventually, after a couple of years, this was a couple of years in, eventually kind of like figured out that Perla is also attracted to women. And, it was the way we were raised, that just wasn't like an option at all.
Right. I would imagine like Perla, that just never even crossed your mind.
Yes, correct. Growing up, I felt that I liked women, but I didn't know what that was. I liked watching them, and especially in the girls' locker room in high school. But like, I never interacted. I never act on it.
Right.
So yeah, and then when we figured that out, I was like, okay, so you're bisexual. I want to figure out how I can help you with this and support you in this, because the way we were raised, it was very extremely homophobic. So like, how like you'll see in like a movie or a TV show, you'll see this like crazy preacher and you think, oh, clearly no one actually believes that stuff, or no one really acts like that. No, that's exactly what it was. Like the crazy preacher screaming, yelling, hollering, everyone who's gay is going to hell. Like that's how we grew up. And so it was very much a very different thing for us. We didn't know anything about the LGBT community. We didn't know anything about any of that. And so I wanted to learn and be able to support Perla in that. So I turned to what I always turn to, which is podcasts. That's how I learn everything. And so I looked for a bisexual podcast, and that's how I found the By the By podcast with Bradford and Angela.
Oh, wow. Cool.
That was like our beginning of it. And then I was like, oh, okay, they're both bisexual. This is interesting. And then they mentioned swinging. And at first I was like, that's crazy. But then I was like, you know what? Maybe that's not so crazy. And I told Pearl about it, and she's like, that's crazy. And then later she's like, maybe that's not so crazy.
Well, I was going to say, when I asked that question originally, Perla, you had kind of a audible sigh of like, oh boy, this story is how we found it. And I was curious on your side, like, how did that, when he brings this back and he's like, yeah, I found podcasts on bisexuality and swinging and all of these other things, was that overwhelming?
Yeah, overwhelming.
Yes, it was. And to back up a little bit, I do remember that one time, well, growing up religious and growing up the way I did, just any sexual stuff we never talked about. I never had my sex talk. I never knew what to expect. So when we were dating, he will always like, hey, watch this YouTube video on sex and this position and like, tell me what you think and stuff like that. Also, I remember when we got married, I came from a conference and I'm working really hard with my therapist, but I was very jealous. I was a very jealous person. I do admit that. I was very possessive because of the way I grew up. I saw that pattern in my parents. So I will watch everything and ask Chad, like, okay, his phone, like what he's seeing, because I was in my mind, back in my mind, he's cheating or he might be cheating. So I need to find out for myself before I find out from somewhere else. So one time I saw him watching porn and I was like, wow, I guess I'm not good enough for me. Like, that's not good enough for me. Like, I'm not good enough for him. And so that was very devastating for me, especially coming from a church conference, like trying to be this kind of wife, this kind of woman of God, blah, blah, blah. I'm failing as a wife because of that's how they taught me. So that was in the back of my mind. We moved on from that, but that was still back of my mind until I brought it up again and I asked them, so why is it that you watch porn? And we had this conversation, like, why is it that you, like, what does it does for you? You know, I was curious because I never watched porn. I heard guys who watch porn are perverts. They are horrible people, right? Horrible guys. So I was like, I want to find out what it is. It's not like, okay, let's not talk about it. Let's actually talk about it. Let's face this obstacle.
Yeah.
So we did, and he will tell me, like, so do you fantasize about any women in the street? What do you think? Because there's times that I will catch him looking at women. And like, that's how much jealous and obsessed I was, like, controlling. And I am not very proud of that. But that helped us to the path that we are now. And now I'm like, you know what? Hey, we're happy. And I'm just like, I've grown so much. We have grown so much since being non-monogamous. But yes, it was really hard for me.
Yeah. Well, and so how did you two move? And first of all, thank you for sharing, because it's not an easy thing to...
No, when you're pushing against all of those norms that you grew up with, and I mean, both
not
of you
even
were.
Norms, like threats, right? I mean, if you're gay, you're going to hell. You're going to, that's...
Yeah. I mean, pushing against that and trying to actually learn and understand and then like evolve your thinking, that's huge. And so I don't want to, dismiss that at all. No. And so like the fact that you were very jealous and controlling, and you said you're not very proud of that, but looking back, that was kind of the way you were raised in a sense. So, you can't necessarily blame you for being that way, but it sounds like you've come so far, and that's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, she's definitely come a long way. And a lot of that was that, with her parents, her dad cheated on her mom numerous times throughout her childhood. And, that definitely leaves some kind of like an emotional scarring of sorts. And so obviously I wasn't thrilled about being accused of cheating constantly, but I did understand, why that was and where that was coming from.
Yeah.
And so looking back on it, obviously there's so many things that were not good or healthy about our relationship at the time. So it's hard to say what we should have done differently, but the only thing I knew to do was just to try and be as open as I could be. So I always just said, here, look at my phone, whatever you want to see. I'm not doing anything. Obviously it was a little frustrating when, to constantly be like, who are you talking to? Who you're texting? It's like texting my boss, here, look, I'll show you. But, we worked through that, and, it's definitely wasn't an easy road, but we've definitely, worked through that and come out much better from it.
Yeah. Going from the super, super strict religious to the super jealous, a lot of the things that you're talking about those are huge things to overcome to try to open a relationship. And how did you ultimately have that discussion and start taking those steps to make it happen?
It all started with Bradford and Angela.
Yeah. It's their fault.
It really is. So we started listening to it together, and we just thought, this is really interesting. This is really cool. This could be pretty fun. And during that time, a lot of our religious beliefs were changing a lot, mostly because we both had a lot of questions that never really had gotten answered. We were just told, oh, just believe more, just believe harder. so eventually we started really like exploring these things on our own and, learning and trying to find the actual answers outside of the small collection of things that you're allowed to look at, like reading books that were like from other religious teachers or non-religious teachers, which was not really allowed or condoned. And, things started changing a lot in that aspect. And then part of it also was, the 2016 election changed a lot when we saw how people who would always say that, integrity is important and trust is important and moral purity is important. When you saw those people full force, endorse Trump for president, it just really just showed us the huge amount of hypocrisy, in addition to the other, hypocritical things we've seen, from especially our particular brand of Christianity. Our views on that probably would have been very different if we had grown up in a more, liberal mainline denomination. But the way we grew up, they're very, if you have a moral failing, then you should be, you can't really be trusted again. And then to take someone who brags about rape and sexual assault and brags about cheating on their spouse, and then saying, yes, this is the best person. And what they would often say is not just this is our best option, but they would say, this is, God's choice for us. You can't on one hand say that, integrity is important and moral purity is important. And then on the other hand, say, this guy is, God's choice for us. He's God's servant. And so that just really showed us that there's not always the same rules for everyone. And people don't always mean exactly what they say they mean. If someone says that they're going to support their political beliefs, then all of a sudden they're a great person.
Yeah, right. So it was Donald Trump and Bradford and Angela. We'll just lump the three of them together. I'm
sure they'll love that association.
Yeah, I hope they pick this episode to listen to.
Right. We started talking more about swinging and those ideas. And so we eventually decided to try it. And there's a swingers club in our city. There's a couple, actually. We went to the one and we talked about going for a while, and we were sometimes on board, sometimes not as on board. We wanted to really check this thing out before we really dove in. So we read a lot of books and talked about it more and said, well, how would you feel if this happened? How would you feel if that happened? And, after several months of that, it was on our third wedding anniversary that we weren't able to do, anything big that year. So we just stayed in a hotel still in Philly, but just on a different side of the city. And it was really close to the swingers club. And so we decided to go. It was like nothing we'd ever seen or experienced before. And it was overwhelming and exciting. And we didn't know what to do. We tend to be a little bit more introverted. Me especially, I'm an extremely quiet person. And I don't like talking. And I'm not good at talking. I like talking. I just don't know. Let's put it that way. At that time, afraid to talk to anyone. So we would try to talk to people here or there, but we were both really nervous, and it didn't really work with most of the people. We eventually found a couple who talked to us and talked to them for a few hours. And then our plan for that night was just to go and see what it's like, just check it out, talk to some people. And that was going to be the end of it. After a couple hours talking to this one couple, they're like, hey, would you like to come back to a room and just watch each other? They knew it was our first time. They didn't want to be pushed or anything. And so I was thinking okay, but Perla's probably not going to want to. But before I could even ask her, she's like, yeah, we should do it. So we go back and, we start off just watching each other. And then, Perla really wanted to kiss the other girl. So they started doing that. And then we ended up doing some soft swapping and, ended that for the night. And it was great. And it was wonderful and a bit of a, overwhelming experience going from, we'll just check it out to, ended up soft swapping.
Yeah. Well, and I was curious, and not to keep singling you out, Perla, but you are kind of, I don't want to say one person's the gas and one person's the brake, but Chad was the pervert looking at porn, and he was kind of the driver of a lot of these things. I say that facetiously, obviously. So when you guys are going to go to a club for the first time, like, what are you, maybe for both of you guys, like, can you take us through like what that was like coming from where you came to we're getting in the car to drive to a swinger club?
That was 3 months preparation. Yes. It was a lot of thinking, a lot of deciding that, if monogamy hasn't been working for us, then why not try it? I'm a risk taker. So I was like, wait, let's do it. But it took 3 months for me to say, okay, let's do it. I was still nervous and I wanted it to be all out that night. I was like, I'm tired of rules. I'm tired of holding back and not talking about sex. This is my first time going to a sex club. Like, let's do it. So I went all out. I was just like, yeah, it was hard at first, but then it was like really fun.
Awesome.
And that next morning or the next couple of days, how did both of you feel?
It was so exciting.
Yeah.
We were like, this is awesome. Like, we couldn't stop talking about it. I was like, yes, let's do it. And then later I had this regret, like guilt, that religious guilt. Like, fuck, what am I doing?
Right.
Like at that moment, like I was like, yeah, I don't care. I don't care what my parent will say. I don't care what the Bible says. I don't care about what God says. Because at that time I've been doubting God myself. My parents haven't been very good parents to me. And so they pretend to be religious and godly, I guess you can say, but their actions were the opposite towards me. So that doubted me with God. I was like, I don't care what God says. Like, it's my life. I'm young, I'm free, and let's do this. But yeah, later it came on me, like it dawned on me. I'm like, fuck, what did I do? Like, I'm into girls. I just kiss a girl. Like, why?
Yeah.
Sometimes I get anxiety attacks, panic attacks about when I want to kiss a girl, or I think I want to hold someone's hand, a girl's hand, or just want to see her naked. Like, it's still that guilt, like Catholic guilt that people say. Yeah, for me, it's deeper than that. But yeah, it wasn't easy.
Yeah.
Well, and to be fair, it's only been a few years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the way that, growing up, especially for her, that whenever something looked like it might be, anything that could be misinterpreted as anything gay was like really, really not just frowned upon, but like outwardly attacked. So like if two girls were like sitting too close together, someone might say something about them and then they would get brought in front of a disciplinary committee and saying, hey, we noticed you guys are really close together, and, interrogate them as if they're like having a full-on relationship.
Right.
And then if you were suspected of being gay, they would send you to rehab. Yeah, like just the same, they have their own, not even a 12-step program. They have their own like rehab program that's not even as good as 12-step. It's just basically read the Bible and pray more and Jesus will fix everything.
Yeah, and you won't be gay anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's awful. That's awful.
So, she had to always be careful. Like, you can't be too close to a girl. You can't touch a girl, because she might think that you're gay and come on to you and coming on to her, and then she'll report you and things like that.
Right. Right. And so after that first night, I mean, you're battling all these things, these outside pressures and guilts. And how did you two sort of move forward? Like, what did the trajectory look like from first night at the swing club to maybe to roughly where you are now?
So after that first night, we went back probably a month or two later, but didn't end up playing with anyone. We talked to some people, but it seemed like we couldn't really form a connection. And we did a few more times and again, never, did anything with anyone else. And so, that was in March, and didn't do anything until probably maybe August or something like that, and decided to get on SLS and like start connecting with people, online first, and then trying to set up and talk one-on-one, which we found to work better for us. What we found is that we really like to really form a connection with people. What we originally were looking for was trying to find, people who we could do this with on a regular basis. And it didn't work out too well. We couldn't really find a couple that we really clicked with that also wanted to do something more than just once.
Yeah. Like you were looking for friends with benefits, basically, with another couple. Yeah.
That's what we were really looking for. And we would find some people who say they were looking for that, and we would have a great time with them, and it would be a wonderful experience. And then we would almost, wouldn't hear from them again. Sometimes they would respond a little bit, and then we would say about, a week or two later, we'd be like, hey, so when would you guys like to get together again? And then we would like hear, oh, we're really busy, not sure what we're doing. And then we just wouldn't hear from them again. And so we didn't really like that, it wasn't really working well for us. So after a while, we started hearing about something called polyamory, and we're like, oh, okay. So you can have feelings too. That sounds really cool. Another good benefit is that, with a lot of the times when you're swinging, you need to have like a 4-way connection, and it's hard to find that, because sometimes Perla wouldn't like the other guy, or maybe I wasn't into the other girl, or, on the other side, one of them wasn't into one of us. And so, it was just really hard because, sometimes Perla would find someone that she would really connect with, but I wouldn't connect with the other person. And sometimes vice versa, like I would connect with someone and, me and the other woman were having a great time, but Perla's just like, no, I'm just not really into this guy. And so, with poly, we thought, okay, doing this separately would probably really work, but then also brought up a lot of feelings of jealousy and, a lot of stuff that we really had to work through. And then also during this time, we like the non-monogamy and the deconstructing Christianity kind of happened simultaneously. So then by this point, we had just, looked into so many of our doubts and just got to the point where we just stopped believing altogether. So we went from extreme fundamentalist to now the point that we're at now is just agnostic. And, so we didn't have the religious hang-ups as much, except for the leftover baggage from that.
Yeah, the leftover shame and guilt. Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't have any like current, we shouldn't do this because what we believe now is bad, but just the leftover guilt of like, and shame really of just, if I'm doing this, I'm a bad person. And, that was hard. And it's still something that we're working through. So then with poly, it was even more of a scary thing for us, to go from being, strictly monogamous to swinging. And then within a short time, considering polyamory, it was a lot to deal with. So, we listened to some more podcasts, we read a lot of books, listened to more podcasts, read more books, and talked constantly about so many different things. And, so if we do this, what do we want it to look like? How are we going to structure it? What kind of rules or boundaries do we want? Do we want rules? Do we not want rules? That whole dynamic has been changing and is still changing. It's never like this is how it is and we're done, but very much this is how we're doing it for now. And when things stop working, we just change to something else and go forward like that.
Yeah.
You can't forget the meetups. We started going to poly meetups before we even did anything.
So like after the swing club, you started to go to some poly meetups and try to meet people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So at the beginning of this year, we started,
last year,
beginning of 2019, we started going to some poly meetups. They were really good, and we were still like not really sure. So we wanted to, just meet people and see what it was going to be like. So we went up, and the funny thing is that there's a bunch of poly meetups in the city, but they're all on like weeknights. We were never able to make any of those. So we went to the ones that were like way up in the north suburbs, like pretty far from us, because they were on weekends. And so like now all of our friends like all live really far from us. So the poly meetups were wonderful. There was a couple of them, and some of the same people were at each of them, and then some obviously were just at one or two of them. And so it was great to find a whole group of people that were very consistent and that we could talk to and really get to know and really see what this polyamory really looks like. And it was wonderful. There were some people there who had been doing polyamory for like 15 years or more and have had all different kinds of relationship dynamics, and as well as other people who were still fairly new to it. Some people who were, in a mono-poly relationship, people who were, solo poly. And it was great getting to meet people, just seeing that, polyamorous people are just normal people that deal with normal things. And it's funny how often at many of the meetups we would go for 3-4 hours and not actually talk about polyamory at all, and just everything else beyond it.
Right. I mean, and you found basically a support group that showed you how it can look and how it can be done, and that what you were hoping to find was out there, even if you had to drive to the north suburbs to get it.
Well, and something more than podcasts. You're actually talking to people and meeting people, which is a huge difference from just listening to stories, right?
Definitely.
As much as listening to stories is helpful, like our current podcast, but meeting people in person, it does make a difference.
Yeah, definitely.
And so how has it evolved down the poly route? And I mean, maybe at some point I would like to circle back and talk about
a few things,
specifically maybe the jealousy, because I could see how that would be a lot harder in the poly side of things. I guess, how has it evolved since you started going to the meetups? Like what's changed and what's it look like?
So we did that, for several months, and, then we decided to really go ahead and start trying to date. So we decided, okay, now we're going to start doing this, but then nothing really happened. So then we were still going to poly meetups together, and, that was like the extent of it, even though we were now searching and then, getting on like OkCupid and things like that. At first it didn't seem to go hardly anywhere. That was a little like frustrating because, it's hard when you feel like you're trying, but nothing's really happening. Also, it wasn't just okay, we're going to do this now. It was like okay, I think we're going to do this. Okay, hold on, I'm not sure if we can do this. Okay, let's do it. Actually, you know what? I'm not sure if we can do this. And it was a bit of a back and forth. And it depended on the day and how we were feeling and what else was going on.
I assume this was you, Chad, being indecisive.
It was both of us, actually.
As Perla's laughing.
Yeah.
It was.
Well, what was part of I guess maybe take us through that. What was on the days it was yeah versus no. What was that like? What was going on? Because you're not alone in that.
No.
So a lot of it was just when we felt like, it's like a lot of things. When it's a bright sunny day out, it's warm weather, everything is going well, things just seem more wonderful. And, how like probably even your own relationship, you probably fight less when other good things are happening in your life. And then when you have more stress in your life, you find yourself fighting more. And it's the same in every relationship. And it was the same with us when other things beyond our life were impacting us, or other parts of our life were becoming more stressful and more difficult. That's when we would get, more indecisive about poly. We would kind of like assign those feelings to polyamory, even when they really weren't. It was other things beyond that. So like during this time, right around that time when we were going back and forth, we've always been trying to have good relationships with our families, but that hasn't worked out very well, particularly because when we were leaving Christianity, and even before that, just changing our beliefs, our families didn't really like that and have mostly just stopped talking to us. And so we were losing all of those connections and that support. And also at the time, leaving our church had been where all of our connections were. And so losing all of those things, naturally made us more afraid of losing each other.
Yeah.
And so with those things going on, and as those feelings would hit us, then we would feel like, no, I've lost everything else. I can't lose you too. I'm not sure about this poly thing. And a lot of times we would assign all the feelings we had to polyamory. But if we were more honest, and even sometimes afterwards we talk and say, it really was more like I was feeling this way because of other things. And we just assign those feelings to fear of polyamory.
Right.
But, one of our biggest fears around it was just losing each other. Our whole lives had changed in the past few years. And through that, the only people that were still in our lives were each other. Everyone who was in our life before was pretty much been gone. We've got new friends now, but the only people that we've had consistently for the past 5 years was each other. And both of us, our parents had split up, not in like a good amicable divorce, but like bitter, nasty, traumatic divorce. So naturally we were just always afraid of losing each other because that's what we saw in our parents, and both of our parents cheated on each other. And it's like her, as we said before, her dad cheated on her mom. And in my family, both of my parents cheated on each other numerous times. They should have just, been open or just gotten divorced years before, but they waited too long and it just became horrible. And so that kind of just trauma leaves an impact on us. And so we were just afraid that was what our lives were going to be like. That now after losing everyone else and seeing our parents split up, now we're going to end up splitting up. We just really didn't want that.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we would fight more or when we would feel more jealous, sometimes we'd say, you know what, we're feeling too jealous. This is a bad idea. I don't want to lose you, so let's just not do this poly thing. But then when we'd work through some more of those feelings and we'd feel like we were more stable, when we would just be fighting less and we would have less stress in our life, then we would just both really like the idea of poly more and really want to do it. And so then later on, in the fall of 2019, we really started, in practice, like really looking and searching for people and started to find some success and start dating.
And you were doing this all separately at this point, like you had started dating separately.
Yes. And started to actually have some dates. And it was wonderful. We experienced no jealousy. There was no problems. It was just wonderful. And cutting roses.
Perla's nodding viciously.
Yeah.
I disagree.
Yeah. So
I think that's one of the times that when he went on his first date, I lost it. It's like, fuck, like he is in my house with somebody. He's finally dating. Where am I going to be in this picture? What's going to come after this? Because he was really excited and he was really going for it. And I'm like, okay, because I decided that I was not going to date until he wanted to date first. So I was like, okay, it's fine. Because he says that I get more dates than him because my personality is very outgoing, very like I click with people right away. So I was like, okay, maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But with him, I was like, this girl is just like me. It's like, if you wanted to date another person, like, I don't know. But it was really...
Yeah, it's threatening.
Yes, it was threatening. It was threatening. Like, she wasn't trying to, like, invade or take him away. It's just, like, it was hard to share him.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, jealousy and feeling threatened comes and goes. There's times that, like, hey, she's part of Chad's life. It is a good thing. That means I don't have to work harder for him. I'm just kidding.
But you have someone else to share, like, and you both have other people in your lives that share some of the
other outlets.
Yeah. Have other outlets for yourself.
Yes. Yeah. But I didn't see it that way at first. I saw it as a threat.
Yeah.
Not as like someone else is gonna, or his likes, he's very nerdy and I'm not. And so I like to have fun and party. And so I couldn't relate with him sometimes. So it's always good to find people who you can relate and have something in common.
Right. And just to clarify, the reason that you were holding off on dating was the sort of notion that it's going to take Chad longer And the day that you decide to do it, you can basically just turn on the fire hose and it won't be that difficult.
Not necessarily. No.
But in general, like, I mean,
it is harder.
Pretty much.
I think it's for me to adjust.
Yeah.
For me to adjust that he's dating.
Okay.
Because if we both are dating at the same time, I felt that we would have lost each other. But if he's dating, I'll focus on getting my jealousy down and seeing how that works out.
Okay.
And then part of it also is that, at different times, definitely in the beginning when we were swinging, it was more of I was the gas, she was the brake. But then when we're moving into poly, it became a back and forth of sometimes I was the gas, she was the brake, and sometimes she was the gas and I was the brake. And it varied a lot. And during that time, she was saying, so do you want to go on a date? And I was like, well, I do, but I'm not sure if I'm ready for this. I'm not sure how I would feel. And, I think I would handle the idea of us dating other people well, but I'm not as sure. And, so that was why part of it, she's like, well, why don't you date first and then see how it goes? And then I will. It was funny. It's like, I was really afraid of it. And then when I went on that first date, like partway through, I was like, this is amazing. And like, I was enjoying myself and having a good time. I was also thinking like, this is great. This is wonderful. Perla should do this too. I'm gonna text her as soon as I get home and be like, yeah, you should start dating too. This is great. And then at the end of that date, we hit it off pretty well. And then we saw each other again and Perla met her and things were going pretty well. But then the relationship just didn't go anywhere. Then neither of us did anything for a while again. And then, a couple months later, I started dating more and going on some more dates. And then Perla had met someone and she really wanted to date. And she's like, but, I'm not sure how you handle that. And I was like, well, if you want to date them, just go ahead and date them. I'm not sure how I feel yet, but just go ahead and do it and I'll figure it out. I'll deal with it somehow. And that was, the plan. And it seemed like things were going to go well until that first date actually happened. I thought we planned it out pretty well and we talked through a bunch of things. That first date she went on, I was supposed to be going on a date. I had scheduled my date earlier and Perla had scheduled hers later. That first date I went on was, it was okay, but it didn't really go anywhere. So it ended fairly quickly, but Perla's date was going really well. So they went back to our place. And so, now I was, I didn't plan very well. And so I figured, oh, okay, they're going back to our place. They've been there for a little bit. At this time, Perla was working an early schedule. So she was getting up really early and going to bed pretty early. So I was like, oh, okay, there'll be another few minutes. By the time I get home, they'll probably be pretty much done, but they weren't. And so I was just kind of like driving around and then sitting around and just,
waiting,
just trying to wait, just assuming that, oh, it's going to be just a few more minutes. It's going to be a few more minutes. But I also didn't want to be like, hey, can you end this now? I want to come home. I didn't want to break up their date or ruin their time. I want to be, considerate of them. And so I'm sitting in the car trying to distract myself, but just not handling it well. And the jealousy is coming up and the fear is coming up and all these things are coming up. And I'm trying to keep it together and I'm not doing a good job. And the later it goes, the worse it gets. And I'm a very, very calm person. I don't really get angry at all, like ever. And when I came inside finally after they were done, they'd done, they'd already left. And then I came in and like, I'm just like boiling with anger, but trying not to say anything because I didn't want to ruin, I was like, she's had a great date. I don't want to ruin it. I don't want to ruin her good time. I'll talk about this later. And I'm trying to hold it all in. And she just looked at me. She's like, you're not okay, are you? And I'm like, no, I'm not. And, but then we talked about it. And the part of what bothered me was that, like I said, during this time, she was working early shifts. I was working late shifts. So when I would, get done, I would want to, hang out and talk with her, but she would be tired and ready to go to bed, like almost as soon as she came home from work. And, so I would just feel like, oh, it didn't bother me as much because I figured, okay, she needs her sleep. She's tired. And then, she was staying up really, really late with this other person. That was what bothered me the most at the time. I was like, wait a minute, you're always tired when I want to hang out with you, but when someone else does, you're staying up so many hours later than you normally do. And that was what was bothering me the most, was feeling that I was feeling like I wasn't important and I wasn't valuable. But then after we talked about it, I was thinking that she had to work the next day, but she didn't. And there's a few other things that I thought were going to happen and were happening and that weren't. And after we talked about it, not that like everything all of a sudden was just perfectly fine, but it really helped me to, as we talked through that jealousy and those feelings, it was really helpful for me to be able to just understand her and what's going on and figure out myself, like what my feelings really were, why I was really angry, and that it was just feeling that she wanted someone else and did not want me. But she was able to reassure me like, no, I still want you. And once she explained it, I was able to understand, her reasons and her feelings, and, we worked through it. We're much better off because of it. Through that experience and experiences like it, we've really had a lot of really hard conversations, but they've also been really wonderful conversations. We've learned so much more about ourselves and about each other, and, our relationship has gotten even stronger through it.
Yeah, I think that's what's been really good for us. The hard conversations. Not a lot of people want to have the hard conversations, but it has helped us a lot. It has helped us overcome our obstacles.
Definitely. Something that I've heard on, I think it was a guest on your podcast, said that, polyamory, it forces you to confront your issues. And it really does. When you're just monogamous, it's really easy to kind of hide your issues and, avoid them. But polyamory really makes you face them. So like for myself, we're both very codependent on each other. And so polyamory forces us to be more independent and to think more independently. And, and so like for myself, I'm always wanting to, like be a people pleaser and just do what everyone else wants. And in monogamy, that's fine. I can just do whatever Perla wants and it's fine. But then in polyamory, I can't do what two people want at the same time. And, it's forced me to realize that I have to also take care of myself.
Right.
And that my own well-being is important too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Perla, you mentioned at one point that you've been working through jealousy with a therapist too. And so I'm assuming, are you both working with therapists? Has that been something that's been helpful to both of you?
Yes.
Yeah. So I've been seeing a therapist for a few months now. I forget how many. And then Pearl started a little bit before me. I think I started in like November or something. Pearl, I think, started in September.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been wonderful. We've been going every week, to our individual therapists, and sometimes seeing each other's therapists with each other and things like that. And
I can't say it's been wonderful. I mean, and not at first. It's been a lot of work.
Right.
A lot of work. And on top of that, I'm a regular therapist. I decided to do a CBT. What is it called for?
Cognitive behavioral therapy.
There you go. Okay. Yeah. So that has helped me to work my jealousy out and my anger, because for being jealous, I act out angry.
Right.
And that's what I'm not proud of either, but I've been really good about that. And
yeah. Well, it sounds like,
really proud of myself.
Yeah. It's like, it sounds like it has been hard and extremely difficult, but you want to put in that effort, both of you, it sounds like, because you want to be in a better place. You want to work through these things. And I just think that something to be very proud of, that you're willing to do that work.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, therapy has been amazing. We've both kind of known that we should go to therapy for a while, but it was polyamory that really forced us to do it. And because as these conversations were happening, sometimes things were going better, but sometimes things were going worse. And part of it is that, we both experienced depression. My therapist has been treating me for major depressive disorder and generalized anxiety disorder. And shortly before I went to therapy, for years, I've struggled with depression and struggled with thoughts of suicide. And that's been, ever since I was a teenager, really. And when my dad died, ever since then, I've been, had thoughts of suicide. And, as we engage more in polyamory, that, those feelings actually started to get stronger. I started to get even more depressed sometimes and started to really, experience that depression more and more, and started thinking about suicide more and more often, and I didn't want to be that way anymore. I wanted to change. I wanted to get better, and I wanted to get help. And so I went to therapy, and most of the issues that we have in regards to polyamory really aren't polyamory issues. They're just our own personal issues. Most of it isn't like poly specific issues. It's just poly has forced us to confront our other issues.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that, I'm depressed? Why is it that I want to kill myself all the time? And it's because of a bunch of other issues that don't really have anything to do with poly, but talking about poly had been bringing up those feelings and making me feel them more. And so therapy has really helped me to get through that and to understand that more and to work through that. And now coming through on the other side, we've been feeling so much better, and, still in therapy and still going through things, but it's been making a huge difference now. Now when I have, jealousy come up or other feelings come up, instead of just sitting in those and just feeling worse and worse and worse, now I can go to therapy and talk through them. And it's been wonderful because we've still, so we've been in poly for a little while now, and we're both dating several people, and it's been rough sometimes, and it's been rough for both of us at different points. And we've had a lot of things happen that have really, brought up a lot of anger and brought up a lot of feelings. And we've been working through them separately, but also, just together with each other. But also now we can go to our therapist and talk through them. And it's been wonderful to be able to talk to someone about the things that I'm feeling, and to have someone, just listen, who I can just be completely honest with, who doesn't know anyone in my life. I don't have to worry about impressing them or worry about them judging me, because I'm not going to see them anywhere else except in therapy. They don't know anyone that I know. They're not going to tell anyone what I say. I can just lay it all out, and this person can just listen and help me through it, and then help me to work through those feelings and figure out what's beneath it and work on change.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been wonderful. Even just in the fairly short time I've been in therapy, I've made so many breakthroughs and made so much progress.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that and for being vulnerable and sharing everything that you have. It's not easy. And I was going to ask, I think you kind of answered this question already, but I was going to ask that people, looking from the outside some people would say, well, it seems like polyamory is causing all of these issues in your relationship. Why don't you just get rid of that and everything will be fixed? And your point is, well, no, we had all these issues anyway. They just were not, polyamory is forcing them to come to the surface a little bit more, and we need to work through them. And no matter what your relationship dynamic turns into over time, who knows, it might change again, but you want to, as hard as it is, you want to confront those issues, because ultimately that'll make you better people and hopefully happier people.
Oh, definitely. We're way happier now than we were a year ago. And exactly, most people would probably say, oh, poly is your issue, you should just stop doing that. And it's yeah, we probably fight less, but those issues are still there. We still had fights, big fights before we were poly. And so they were still going to happen. And all of those issues were still there. And so it's been helpful for us to work through them, because, even before we started this, we fought a lot before. And there were a lot of times when we weren't sure how long our relationship was really going to last. And that was really scary. And so poly has really helped us, forced us to confront our issues, and it's helped us to be better individuals and to be better together as a couple in our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think maybe a question, if I was a skeptical listener, this is not from my point of view or my voice, but that you've said this, we're stronger, we're happier, everything is going better. We moved out 2 months ago, and we're
separately.
We're living separately now. And I'm just curious if you could talk a little bit about that, because I could see somebody using that against you guys as a case for why this isn't working.
Yeah, it's always funny when we tell people that we don't live together anymore, because the first reaction is like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And it's like, no, we're not broken up. We're still together. So something that I learned on another podcast, the multi-amory one with Jace, Emily, and Dedeker,
Yeah.
they reference the Gottman Institute a lot. And something that the Gottman Institute has said is that a lot of couples have problems that never have a solution. Like they fight about the same things, and those things just never can be resolved. And so for us, what we found is that a majority of our fights were about things related to living together. They weren't like about a relationship. I mean, not to say that we didn't have relationship issues also, but a lot of our fights, a lot of our nitpicking, a lot of our things that really got on each other's nerves about was things related to just living together, and we're not great roommates. And so we're wonderful together. We love each other. We're crazy about each other. We just don't do well when we're living together. We both have our own ways of how we want to live, and they're not the same. So we decided that for a while, we're going to try living separately.
See how it goes.
And see how it goes. And so we're going to try it for a year. And even that part was really scary because it felt like we were separating, and, it was scary and forced us to also confront some fears. And it's also helped us to really be more independent because we became codependent to an unhealthy level. And through polyamory, we've been trying to unravel that. But it's also really hard when we share the same space. So living separately has been helping us, and it's been helping us to be more independent. And we're still together. We still see each other all the time. We didn't pick a great time for it. So
I was going to say,
I moved out on March 1st. So
yeah,
this is obviously right before.
Well, who would have seen a global pandemic coming, right?
Yeah. So it wasn't great timing. And when we were preparing for it, it was a lot of talking. And at first I was thinking it was going to be a little hard, but really good. But then when I first moved out, those first couple of nights, it was really, really hard. Both because, of not living with Perla, and also because where we lived, we'd lived there for 4 years or more. And so it was been my home, and I liked living there. I was very comfortable. I'm a homebody. I like being in my home. I don't like going out other places too much, except for when we go see people. But other than that, I just like being at home. And now I was just not at home because I was somewhere else.
Yeah, you had to make a new home.
And that part was really hard. And then, we got through it, and, it wasn't like a contentious separation. We worked together through the whole thing. She helped me move and get settled in, and, we worked through all that stuff together. And, that first week or so we stayed, we flip-flopped staying at each other's houses to, kind of ease the transition. And then, everything was going okay. And then, we went into full lockdown. Now we can't see anyone else. And then we feel very alone and isolated. So we started just spending the whole weekends together. And then this week, Pearl has been staying with me all week, and it's been really good and interesting because it's helping me to be more comfortable in my new place, and we still get to spend a lot of time together. But it's still very much, I have my place, she has her place. And even with spending a lot of time together, because we're not living together, it's been helping us. Because if she doesn't like the way that I keep something in my house, that's fine. It's my place. She doesn't have to worry about it. When I go over to her place and I see the way
get out of here,
she does things in her house, I don't have to get frustrated by it because it's not my place. It's her place.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I mean, honestly, for sharing everything. You guys have shared a lot. And I will say it was kind of funny when you're like, I'm an introvert. I don't like to talk a lot. And then you've done most of the talking, and you've kept her under wraps. So we maybe wanted to give her a chance.
I think she was a little nervous.
Yeah, I know. But give you both the chance to maybe share any final thoughts that you wanted to get out there. Yeah.
I do want to say the reason that we also moved, we had our own places is because so we can have the freedom of having a date and having whoever we want and not waiting for someone to finish your date and not, having that privacy. For us, privacy is very important, like having our own space and also like not being controlling, like, oh, I don't like the way you do stuff. The way you come home and stuff like that. But yeah, that's one of the reasons as well that we moved out. Not because we can't live without each other, not because we are tired of each other. So.
Right.
Right.
You wanted to see too, if think this experiment of living apart adds and makes your relationship stronger.
Correct. And I've been so codependent with them because this is the way I grew up. I felt scared. I felt scared that I can't live on my own. I can't support myself. That's pretty much it. Like that's been my thing for me. But I've noticed that I have been taking it so well that I was like, I don't think I want to live. I don't think I want to have any roommates anymore.
Yeah. Like you love just having your own space.
Definitely. I didn't think I would, but I do like it.
Yeah. And we have talked to other people that are in long-term relationships and they say like one thing, we will never live together. Like our relationship works so much better with us not living together.
Yeah.
So there's definitely, for some people, there's something to that for sure.
Yeah. Well, any final thoughts that you would like to share with us? I know we've covered a lot of, we could dig into so many things, but in the interest of this not being like a 3-hour podcast, we thought we'd wrap it up here. But if there's anything else you'd like to share, please do.
Yeah, I'm not thinking of anything else other than everyone should go to therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have a very strong case for that. And that's amazing. I would also encourage people, don't hesitate to reach out for help.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you both for everything. And we're excited to hear that everything is going really, really well for you both. And that
despite the pandemic
and through all the adversity that you've come through. So it's exciting to see. And we're happy we got to meet you two out in New York City. So
yeah, it was great to meet you guys too.
And thank you for wanting to come on the show.
All right. Thank you for having us.
Oh, no, absolutely. It's our pleasure. So have a wonderful Saturday afternoon and we'll be in touch.
All right.
Okay. Bye.
And we're back.
Oh,
nice timing.
Nailed it. High five.
That's going to be real loud.
Nah.
Thank you, Chad and Perla, for reaching out, coming on the show, coming to our meet and greet last fall, meeting us in person. Yeah.
Jeez.
You're awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, no, again, I hope everybody felt that was an incredible interview. I know we did, and we're really grateful that you guys came on and shared it. And we have a fun interview next week.
We do. Mel and Carson.
People were worried. They were like, oh, this is it. This is the end.
No, we have one next Wednesday.
Yep. Mel and Carson, again, awesome people and a great story. Real quick before we let you go, we just wanted to remind everybody that we have a new sponsorship, Alt Playground, and to go check out how inclusive and badass they are making the online dating world. Our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com, has links to take you over there, and we urge you to go check it out.
You can also sign up for our next virtual meet and greet on June 25th on our website.
Well, you can sign up now, but the meet and greet is on June 25th.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Okay.
Normalizingnonmonogamy.com, just in case we didn't say it enough.
We said it too many times.
Okay. Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening.